just had the style to pop. 100 on my fist and 100 on my watch.
What is up, people? Hey, thanks for making it back to the podcast. This is Tap In with VinnyVin. That's me, episode 3. For those who made it this far, y'all some real ones. If this is your first time on the episode, welcome, I would recommend that you go watch some of my other episodes as well, just so you get some type of understanding, or you kind of get the expectation of what to expect on the podcast, kind of get familiar with how we get down over here or whatever, Hopefully you guys had a great week. Hopefully you're starting off your weekend even better. And next week, we get back to it, back to the grind or whatever. So, let's go ahead and dive into episode 3, A lot of what we're going to talk about today is kind of just conversations I had with my brother throughout the week leading into the podcast, A lot of the things we talked about was like family stuff or whatever, A lot of it started coming up because we're having conversations about how we're going to go to my grandpa's burial, He passed away a couple weeks ago, And it's not a sad time, I'm not sad about it, at least. He was 90, He made his way around the sun a couple of times, you know what I mean? He made his way over from Mexico, kind of came over here and started, just hustling. So he's a real inspiration to me. He's one of those people that, he was on a mission and he completed his mission, So I was just happy to be a part of his legacy, get to witness him in action and stuff like that. We don't ever want to see a family member pass away by any means, but, I wasn't sad. I was just like, he's on to the next chapter of his spiritual journey or whatever, So a lot of the conversations we were having was kind of like, with me and my brother was like, what are you going to wear to the freaking burial? Should we go in matching suits or whatever? You think that would look kind of cool, Or what time are you going to leave? What freeway are you going to go to miss all the traffic or whatever? Should we split a breakfast burrito? That way we're not hungry during the service or whatever, And I'm like, yeah, for sure. I mean, we could do that or whatever, And in the middle of the night, throughout the week, my freaking dad, he's freaking emotional or whatever. He's like the opposite. And, he was just sending me pictures of family moments, And I'm hoping he's all right, But he's probably just like looking at pictures while he's, drinking or whatever. Probably going down memory lane or whatever. So he sent me some pictures. I was looking at myself when I was like 9 to 15, the rough ages, where my freaking cheekbones didn't match my face yet or whatever. I'm waking up and I swear, I promise you, I probably got like 57 photos from him in one night. I was like, that's crazy, He's probably over there just freaking going through a photo album, just freaking scrolling forever. So, me and my brother got to talking about it. Like, hey, did dad send you pictures or anything like that? Did he leave you any drunk voicemails as well? And I was like, yeah, he definitely did that. And we were just talking about it, laughing about it. We're looking at pictures of me like freaking playing football on Thanksgiving or playing freaking kickball or hacky sack or whatever, Back when I was like 9 years old, I was a hooper, so I was playing basketball or whatever. Freaking racing the neighbor in the middle of the street, doing things like that, So we get to talking, talking about those good memories. And we end up bringing up my cousin, right? Because I used to have this cousin. He was crazy. My cousin Josh, he passed away a couple years ago, Rest in peace, my cousin Josh, And he was funny. He was a trip, He made me trip out a lot. And he was a good guy, He had kids. He was a good dad while he was down here, And he was definitely one of the people I would, if he was still around, have on the podcast, because he was just like a personality that, was just funny like that. So, but yeah, man, so I'm talking to my brother and I'm like, damn, bro, like, is it weird that like when he passed away, I was probably like 16, 17, 18, around that age. I don't remember exactly, but I was like, is it weird that when he passed away, I didn't feel anything, Like I just didn't really like process it in a way of like being sad or having any type of empathy, you know. And I was kind of mad at myself about that because it was like, you know, we were like close, like busting missions every day, but like we were close enough, you know. Um, we freaking do stuff together where, you know, you like what cousins would do, you know, freaking go walk to the liquor store or whatever, buy a freaking a freaking Slurpee from 7-Eleven or something, you know, freaking steal some candy bars together or whatever. And he was a lot older than me, so like, you know, I just kind of followed his lead or whatever. But yeah, man. So I was kind of mad at myself because I freaking cried over other things, you know. I freaking cried during Marley and Me, you know. I cried at Ratatouille or whatever, you know. I went to other people's funerals where I cried, and I didn't even really know them like that, you know. I just felt obligated to cry because everyone else was, you know. It was like letting out some tears for that funeral or whatever, you know. So I was telling my brother, like, I don't know, I just feel like I never processed it the same with my cousin Josh. I was more in just like shock and disbelief, I feel like. Because unlike my grandpa, right, he passed away kind of just out of nowhere, you know. It just caught us all off guard, put the whole family on notice, you know. So it was one of those things. I mean, you know. But now as years go by, I'm starting to like, you know, I'm starting to think of him every once in a while, or he'll just pop up on me, you know, in my mind or whatever. He'll just come visit me, you know, in a freaking dream or something like that, dream form. And it's funny because that's kind of how he was in person too. You know, he would just freaking pop up on you. He wouldn't necessarily freaking give you a call or anything like that. You know, we had cell phones, but like he was more of like that, you know, just show up at your freaking door or whatever, you know. Freaking send you a letter saying, "Hey, I'll be there," you know, or whatever. And that you received that probably 2 weeks, you know, after him being there. You're like, okay, at least he sent me the text, original text message or whatever. So yeah, he just freaking pop up on me. You know, now that he's gone, he still does that shit. He'll come visit me in freaking dream form or whatever. I'm not even you know, thinking about him, or I don't even know how it happens, you know. He's almost like a freaking herpy or like a STD that's got, you know, that's like haunting me from beyond the grave or whatever, you know. He was one of those kind of people. Just one of those and since he's been on my mind, I kind of wanted to, you know, share a story about him, kind of like some of my favorite memories I had with him or something that just made me laugh about him. But I'm thinking before I even go into anything like that, I should probably describe him to y'all. That way you kind of get a understanding of what kind of person he was, you know? What kind of freaking menace he was when he was out here roaming the earth or whatever. You know, he was one of those people though who best way to describe him, you know, he'd freaking draw on your face if you fell asleep around him, you know. He'd freaking put his nutsack on your forehead and trace it or whatever. Permanent Sharpie, it ain't coming off, you know. Now you freaking walking around looking like a dickhead forever, you know, for at least a week or whatever. And you know, he would freaking see you walking from school, you know, because he used to drive. He was older, and he freaking shoot you with a BB gun or whatever, and be laughing about it, you know. He was one of those kind of people, and then you'll be like, oh, what the hell? And then you see him, and he'll be like, come on, get in. So like you wasn't too mad at him because he gave you a ride, you know. He was one of those people who freaking he would make you like a sourdough grilled cheese or whatever, you know? Because surprisingly he was really good at cooking, which was the reason why I say surprisingly is because with the limited groceries that he used to have at his house, you know? He was really good at making like hood dishes taste good, you know, them ghetto dishes or whatever. You know what I mean? Those pay less food dishes or whatever, you know. And like he would get like just random stuff and make it good. Like that was his skill. He had, you know, a bunch of random skills like that. So you'd see him freaking make some ramen, right? He'll get a bag of ramen or something. Freaking crack a raw egg in there. throw like a freaking a big scoop of mayonnaise in there or whatever. And you're looking at it like, hell no, no, bro, I'm good off of that, you know? But then you try it, right? He talks you into trying it or whatever. Freaking peer pressures you into freaking trying it. And then you try it and you're like, yo, this is actually really good. Like, it tastes like ramen from Japan. I never been there, but like, I'm just trying to say what he made would always taste kind of good, you know? So, yeah, he'll freaking make you like a freaking grilled cheese or whatever. And he'll freaking, take his time making it and then he'll give it to you, you know? And then you freaking take a bite of this grilled cheese, because you're like, damn, hey, good looking out, Josh. Appreciate that. How'd you know I was hungry or whatever? And then he'll give you that freaking grilled cheese. You take a bite, you like, ugh, like, why does it taste like that? Like, how'd you make this? Like, why does it taste nasty like that, And then you'll ask him, like, dude, what the fuck would you do to my freaking sandwich, You'll ask him that because he'll be in the corner over there just freaking laughing, freaking bawling, having a moment or whatever. And you're like, oh, this motherfucker, bro. I bet you he probably farted in my sandwich or whatever, And actually it was a lot worse than that, He'll say something like, oh, you just ate some of the strongest shrooms I ever had in my life, I got it from my homie Enrique. He said you're going to trip balls if you try that. You're probably going to trip wiener or whatever. Because he'd always say some weird shit like that, So you're like, nah, he's bullshitting me. He's just trying to scare me or whatever, And sure enough, he wasn't. He was that kind of person, Put freaking shrooms in your grilled cheese. And while you tripping, he'll freaking, he'll play that Michael Myers theme music, Because I don't know if, for those who never had shrooms, being scared or like anxious or like having anxiety is like the worst feeling to have, So he would do everything he can to make you scared, He'll freaking turn off the lights. You turn the lights back on, and he planted a Chucky doll right there just waiting for you, face to face with a freaking Chucky doll, But that was my cousin. At the time it was very frightful, I was scared to be around him sometimes. But then, I look back at it and that's just who he was. He was a freaking person who liked to see other people, terrified or whatever. He used to like to play pranks on people, That was my cousin. And, every time I seen him, he was dadless, He never had a dad or whatever. He was always sad that he didn't have a dad or whatever, He grew up with just his mom, And even his mom was like, he's a little too much. So she sent him off to my freaking, one of my relatives' house, At like a super young age. I think he was like 8 or 9 or something like that. I don't know the facts about it, but like he was super young living at, some relatives of ours. And, I just remember every time we'd see him, he didn't have a room or anything like that. It's just because they didn't have no space for him there, He was always constantly like, falling asleep at random spots of the house, Because he'll freaking, one day he'll have a room, or he'll have to sleep on a freaking hammock one night, Or he'll call dibs on the freaking couch and fall asleep between 2 couch cushions or something, He used to freaking share one of those pull-out beds that you freaking pull out from the couch. He'd have to share that with a relative, It was just one of those houses that was just full of people, I feel like every family member passed through that house at least once, Lived there at least for like, a couple of months or whatever. So one day they finally made him like his own room, which was kind of exciting. He was super turned up about it. And, we were all kind of like, damn, hey, Josh got a room now. That's kind of cool, And then you would find out, you go to the house and it was just a freaking outdoor patio with freaking mosquito freaking netting around it, He was literally living in a outdoor gazebo or whatever, He was living in a gazebo, dog, just in the middle of summer. It was cool though, because we were all kids, we were like, all right, this is dope, he's got his own room or whatever, and it's outdoors, it was kind of cool. And we'd be playing like freaking PlayStation or GameCube or whatever. And we didn't know any difference, until winter came around. Then winter came around, and it was that dude was living in a freaking lunch pail. You know what I mean? He was living in a freaking lunch box, with a freaking ice pack in it or whatever. It was just fucking freezing in there. So we started calling it the cold room, and you'd have to go over there. He'd invite me and my brother, hey, Jenny, come play freaking video games with us or whatever. And we'd have to go over there freaking layered up, bro. We'd have to be more layered than a fucking than a fucking lasagna. You know what I mean? We have freaking 6 jackets on, 3 blankets. Freaking gloves. Fuck those mittens. Give me some gloves because it was so cold in there. Every time we talk, we were blowing out smoke. We would act like we were smoking cigarettes at a young age or whatever. And that was my cousin though. He was just one of those kind of people, just causing all types of freaking ruckus everywhere he went, Shout out my cousin Josh or whatever. But yeah, man, I'm pretty excited about this weekend. I'm going on a date this weekend with some girl I met a couple weeks ago at a freaking chess club, And it's kind of exciting because I haven't been on a date in a while. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm kind of excited about it. And I met her at a freaking chess club out of all places, I don't even play chess like that. I think I was just freaking watching TV or something. And then out of nowhere, I freaking come across that show Queen's Gambit, And I'm like, hey, there's some baddies that be playing chess or whatever, So I go buy me a freaking a chessboard, and I'm like, I'm going to go find me a little queen or whatever, Because that's the type of shit I'll freaking do, I'll freaking learn how to rock climb if you tell me there's a, bad little Asian ting over there or whatever. I'll learn how to freaking teach sign language if you tell me there's some cute brunettes in that class or whatever, But I think that's the best way to meet somebody, You kind of figure out, find out some new hobbies, and you talk to somebody who's into that stuff at the class or whatever. They go on a date with them. Wine and that's the type of shit I'm on, Because after the second date, you're freaking over here having sex after you just painted a freaking basket of vegetables and fruit or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I'm kind of excited about it, Because I can't do that online dating, bro. I just can't do it. It's weird to me, bro. Like, I don't like it, It's creepy, bro. Like, you don't know who these people are, Like, you don't know if they real or not, You don't know if they're real people or not, Is it AI? Everything's freaking AI now, Constantly asking you for freaking buy their content or whatever, And they just look like people you would never see in real life. Telling you to meet you in the middle Rialto. Go pick them up in the middle Rialto, I'm like, hell nah. I'm just naturally paranoid like that though. I think everything's a setup, So, I don't know. I don't like that online dating, bro. Don't get me started with Tinder either, man. They try to play a pimp every time, I swear. Because don't get me wrong, I know I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but at the same time, don't play me, Tinder. They stay try to hook me up with a freaking, they'll try to hook me up with a trans all the time I'm on there or whatever, Or they'll hook me up with a chick that looks like they had too many trans fats or whatever, just a heavy set woman, Just a woman that looks like an offensive lineman or something like that, And, I'm just not into that, And just to make it clear, like, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, I'm just not into that, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong. I'm just into vagina, you know what I mean? I'm into that original vagina. Like if you go to a freaking Burger King, you get that original Whopper, whatever. I don't like my vagina with all these modifications on it, Any added mod kits or whatever, I go to freaking Carl's Jr., I get a freaking famous star, I just like the old-fashioned, old reliable, that original freaking vagina, And I just don't like the hustle that you gotta do to get to the freaking vagina, you know? You gotta freaking, it feels like you're on a survival show or whatever, just to get some freaking, just to get some, you know? I wish it was a lot easier, you know? I wish it was like pumping gas, you know? You just go pull up to a freaking gas station and be like, hey, can I get 40 on that blonde over there or whatever, you know? Like, oh, do you want it premium? I'm like, nah, I'll take that mid-grade. That'll do fine for now. Let me get that mid-grade. I just need it to get from point A to point B or whatever. You know, I just need 40 of it, you know. And yeah, man, I feel like I mean, you probably can find that if you depending on what neighborhood you're in or whatever, you know. But yeah, I'm kind of excited about this date, you know. I just feel like there's so much added pressure right now, you know. Everybody's like, oh, you getting older or whatever. Are you gonna freaking marry this chick, you know? How many kids you wanna have with her, you know? Are you gonna unload in her and have you a little family or something, you know? I'm like, I don't even know, dog. I'm not thinking that far ahead. You know, the pressure I put on myself right now is like, what am I gonna wear or whatever, you know? Like, what kind of cologne am I gonna put on? You know, I'm not thinking about marriage or any of that. You know, I'm not thinking of shit like that right now. You know, I like to take it a date at a time. You know what I mean? And yeah, right now the pressure I be dealing with is like, oh, where am I gonna take her to? You know, because I don't want to take her to a 5-star restaurant straight off the rip. You know, I don't think that's right. You know. Because some chicks are trifling, you know, they're just there for the date or whatever, you know. And you don't want to take them off to somewhere like really expensive on the first date because then you set yourself up later, you know. Now she's expecting that every time you go out, you know. It's a problem if you go somewhere mid-class, you know, after the second date. So, and plus you don't want to look like you're just trying to impress her or whatever, you know. But I also don't, I mean, I like to do things that are kind of like fun or whatever. I'm not trying to take her to no fucking, you know, shakies or anything like that. A lunch a bunch or something, you know? Like, to me, that's kind of lame. So, I don't know. I put pressure on myself on, like, what we're going to do, you know? I just know I got to pick the spot. Because I remember one time I went on a date with a chick, and she was really into hiking or whatever, you know? She was just an outdoorsy, you know, outdoorsy little shorty or whatever. She was one with nature, you know, naughty by behavior or whatever that shit's called. So, yeah, man, she everything she'd post on Instagram or whatever was her freaking, you know, hiking, you know, going up a freaking mountain with a fucking billy goat in the background or something. Her hanging off a cliff with one arm or something like that, taking a selfie, you know. So she was in the hikes, and I was like, yikes, you know, because I didn't know nothing about hiking or whatever. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'll go for a hike, you know. I didn't know anything about hiking like that. I didn't have no hiking gear or nothing, you know. And this bitch take me on the extreme, you know. Take me on a fucking 7 mile march up a freaking hill, you know. And I didn't go to REI or anything like that, you know. That's not my kind of store, you know. So I'm freaking hiking up a freaking mountain with some Air Force Ones, you know. But I was horny though, so I put up with it, you know. I was doing whatever, you know. I'll get a tattoo from a female artist just to get some alone time with her or whatever, you know. I'll do whatever, don't matter. So, you know, I'm thinking of taking this date to probably like a Target run or something like that. I think Target runs are a good first date, you know. You kind of get to gauge your woman when you go to a Target, you know. I was reading some statistic. It was like, you know, every woman loves Target. Fact, you know. You buy a chick something from Target, 90%, like there's a 90% chance you'll crack. Another fact, you know. So I was like, I kind of like those odds or whatever. So, you know, I thought I'd go on a Target run. You can really gauge your woman, though. Because if you walk in and she just starts buying bullshit, you're like, oh, okay. You know, she on some bullshit or whatever. or she don't got good spending habits or something like that, So I was like, you know, this is what I do. I usually, when I go on a Target run with a girl, I'll go see if, I'll go let her buy whatever she want to buy, nothing too outrageous or anything, but I'll let her buy some things, I'll throw it on a freaking Target credit card, not have to worry about it for another 6 months or whatever. My freaking future self is mad at me because I'm like, fuck, I didn't pay the late fees or whatever. The interest rates went high on that payment. But like the present Vince is like, I'm about to get a nut off, so he's happy, But I'll let them go do their little shopping or whatever. Let them go in the makeup and scent aisles or whatever, buy some stuff. And while we walking, I'll go walk towards the grocery side of the Target, pick out a steak and a freaking bottle of wine. I'll be like, I'm gonna cook us dinner tonight, dinner and movie at my place, real player type stuff. So that's why I like Target, I like the girl that be looking at something and she'll be like, damn, $6.99 for some toothpaste? You know what I mean? That's my kind of woman right there. I like that, Cause like she's over here freaking calculating in her brain, She got them gears moving, She got that account in mind or whatever, And I think girls like that, they just appreciate shit more, You go buy her freaking sandals from freaking Ross or whatever. Costs you $15, but you show up with them and you take the tag off, she's happy, bro. That's the kind of love I like, And every time I go to a freaking Target, I'll do the same test because I like to test my women I talk to, I like to put them on a game show type thing, I want to see what they made of or whatever. What kind of woman is this that I'm dealing with? I can't just bring any woman around, I can't just have any chick in my car or whatever. I can't be just spending money on any chick, So I'll do a test. I'll be like, we'll be in Target or whatever, and I'll grab a freaking Old Spice deodorant, and I'll freaking put it in her bag or whatever. I'll be like, hey, put this in your bag, I'll do it real subtle, real fast, like it's urgent, put this in your bag, just to see what kind of reaction they give me, Is she gonna be like, what are you doing, Are you trying to go to jail? I don't like thieves or whatever, If you're broke, just say that or whatever. She said shit like that. I'm like, all right, bro. Let's get out of here with your unfun ass, I wasn't expecting you to steal it or anything. I just wanted to see how you would react, I wasn't going to let you steal it anyways. I was just playing or whatever. But then I see how you really react to things like that, You don't even want to freaking dine and dash or something. I don't know if I can deal with you, You over here freaking worried about the freaking security guard who can't necessarily do anything to you. They can't do anything, It's just for that little adrenaline rush, But if they're not down for that, I'm like, whatever. But then you try that with another girl, bro, and her eyes start to like, you see that little sparkle in her eye or whatever. Those ones are the fun ones, They'll be like, oh, I've been wanting to steal since the moment we got here, I'm glad I could be like myself around you. You're like, oh, shit. Like, that's cool, But you just got to watch out. You can't let them be stealing shit that's unnecessary, You freaking see her putting a freaking skillet in her freaking purse, and a freaking cheese grater. Then you're kind of like, all right, we might have a problem, That's usually how I do it, though. I like to see something like that because you can't be upset, because you break up with her and now she stole your car. You kind of know that she's like that. It's usually the ones that got a freaking tattoo on their neck or whatever. One that says no regrets on her neck or whatever, or has like a freaking flower or something. Freaking girl with a flower, I just want to go up and sniff her neck, Is it a scratch and sniff? I want to know, what kind of flower is that? Shit like that. But yeah, man, I'm excited for it. I'm about to get ready right now, actually, pretty soon. So, yeah, episode 3 is in the books. homie. So for those who, it's your first time watching, I hope you enjoyed the podcast, And those who are rocking with me to the end of time, shout out y'all. Y'all some real ones. Yeah, man. I'll let you know how it goes or whatever. So I think that's all I got for you today. Gang. We'll go ahead and have another great week in the books. And then I'll be posting this for sure on Monday. And then throughout the next week you'll see me again on another weekend or whatever, another Monday, And sooner or later I know I've been saying it every episode, but I'm gonna get another mic or whatever. And we're gonna have some guests on here, So yeah. All right then, y'all. Peace.
Let's just dance in slow-mo till we can't dance no more. Let's just dance in slow-mo till we can't dance no more. Let's just dance in slow-mo.